Dr. Tom, and welcome back to The Myth Within. I'm very honored that you chose to share your time with me today, and I hope this program will help answer some of those pressing questions that call upon your psyche's need for body, mind, and spiritual balance. Today, we're going to continue our exploration of the mysterious nature of psyche, both as breath and soul, as it was interchangeable in the ancient Greek term. But first, a word from our sponsor. Ever since I was first introduced to the concept of psyche as soul, as a graduate student studying the field of psychology, it really took me aback. Being raised in American culture, I was always used to the concept of psyche as equating to something of mind, something that we had some determinant power over. And being raised in a culture where mind is something that we're able to control, manipulate, and navigate to create a means for us to realize our potential and our dreams, the idea of something being as indefinable and uncontrollable as the nature of soul really took me aback, especially as I began to formulate ideas of how it is we're to try and help individuals through psyche in the first place. This has led me to the study of psyche as both a mythological construct as well as a symbolic construct that we could help people through imaginal teachings or imaginal workings to begin to understand the inner pullings, the inner ebb and flow, the inner callings of their soul as it begins to manifest, especially as it relates towards them setting a goal and trying to obtain their dreams. Now, this delves deeply into the ideals behind depth psychology, Carl Jung's analytical psychology, and the idea of archetypes as being these manifestations of spirit and soul that help drive the individual through the tensions present within the paradoxical nature of psyche, with each archetype having its own polarized force. What happens, the tensions set between the two allow for substantial growth and movement to occur within the individual, especially as they begin to learn how to navigate and develop a greater understanding of the way their mind, their body, and their spirit works in this world. And psyche as a concept of soul simply represents the ideal of self, what Jung would call the capital S self versus the lowercase s self. Lowercase s self equating to ego, and capital S self equating to the supraordinate ideal of who we could become and what our potential is as human beings. And I believe this is where the crossroads meet between the mythology of old and the psychology of new. Psyche is a representative of soul, this beautiful woman within the myth who ultimately falls in love with Cupid, is banned from seeing his face due to a curse sent by Cupid's mother, Venus, yet partakes in the fruit of Cupid's vision, really represents this ideal of the beautiful nature of soul as well as the dark underpinnings that soul calls upon to create movement within our life, especially as it relates to relationships with others. Now, there's a hidden philosophy and a hidden mythology within the symbols of every fairy tale and myth, and these philosophies and the symbols present really equate to our own psyche's capacity, our own soul's capacity to realize not only the dark depths of its hidden nature, but also to find exits from those depths into the realm of spirit, that more light-hearted playfulness aspect that allows us to enjoy the constructs of life, especially as it relates to finding our hidden potential. In the last segment, we explored the idea of Psyche as being breath work, and as we engage with our breath, as we engage with our life force, the ebb and flow of oxygen entering our body and the carbon dioxide exiting, we take part in a beautiful journey that allows us to begin to understand the particular dance our soul undertakes. As we begin to meditate, one of the hardest things individuals have is focusing on the breath. A lot of times they'll find their thoughts wandering. A lot of times they'll find their thoughts may be racing, moving from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, or even dwelling on something that may have been in the past. This is what Buddhists call monkey mind. A monkey mind is just that. It's a mind that moves from one thing to the next, but there's really no flow of movement present. So, what could we do with Psyche as breath work to help tame this form of thinking so that we could begin to touch upon those higher aspects of self? In this podcast and on my vlog on YouTube channel, and I'll include the link in this description, I offer many affirmations as well as affirmative quotes, as well as quotes of inspiration and motivation. And as we begin to learn deeper ways to reflect within, this allows for some movement not only downwards into the psyche, which is what traditionally would be more of a depressed state, but not in the state of a depression. Let us explore in a little bit more detail this rebirth experience, especially as it relates to Psyche as breath and Psyche as soul. But first, a word from our sponsor. We all have dreams, and in order for us to explore, navigate, chart a course, and realize those dreams' potential, we have to begin to understand what part of us we're willing to let go. Because we only have a finite amount of time. In fact, it's the one commodity we can never get back. With that being said, if we only have 24 hours in a day and we have three things that we technically need to do each day, whether it be to sleep, to work in order to sustain ourselves, and to enjoy those fruits of life that our work provides us. These could be things like family, could be things like travel, could be things like writing, podcasting, blogging, vlogging, having fun with life. What ends up happening, we only have a finite amount of time that we could do things in each day. And so if we overexert ourselves or become too unfocused, which is something I see very common within a psychology practice, we end up feeling that we're robbing ourselves from both end of the spectrums, or as the old saying goes, burning the candle at both ends. When this happens, we could end up pushing ourselves into a depressed state. Hopelessness could begin to fill in, especially as it relates to the lack of movement that one may feel if they aren't actively pursuing their dreams. And so when something is stuck in that nature, it really is stagnant. And that's the invitation you have to begin letting it go. That letting it go process can be a psychological death, especially as it relates to old habits that are no longer beneficial. Now, this may be scary at first. However, if we look at its effect on soul work, what happens when the psychological death occurs, it allows room for a rebirth to occur. A seed could only be planted in a fertile soil that is open for its implanting. If it's not open for its implanting, the seed will never take place. And so part of that is the idea of pulling out the weed, of letting go of the habit that's not beneficial in order so that you may plant the seed of something new, something exciting that is calling upon you. Whether it be a breath work habit, whether it be a reading habit, whether it be a writing habit, whether it be a habit of working out, a habit of learning, a habit of finding purpose, a habit of meditation. Any of these habits can begin to create true movement where psyche or soul could begin to manifest itself more within the realized life in the here and now, not this more theoretical construct that we're talking about right now. So, what could you do to get a little more psyche in your life, to get a little bit more soul in your life, and possibly begin to explore the inner depths of your best possible self? Let's take a look at an exercise. One thing I often work with people on to explore their best possible self is to do a little bit of free associative writing. Take about 5, maybe 10 minutes and grab a piece of paper and a pen or sit at your computer and begin to think about the best possible future self you could be. Who's there? What are they doing? Who are they with? Imagine your life the way you always wanted it to be. What would you be doing? In what country would you be? All these things may be elements of the story that you begin to write as you create the character for the best future self that you could be. What are your abilities? What are you doing? Now, when you're writing, don't worry about grammar, don't worry about punctuation. Just feel free to let your mind wander and write anything down that's possible. Just focus all your thoughts and emotions expressing who that best possible self can be. And then after 5 or 10 minutes, feel free to put the pen down and then reflect. Reflect upon what effects the exercise had for you. What you felt doing the exercise. Did it excite you? Did it maybe inspire or motivate you? Did it send you some messages of possible pathways that could open up and the things you need to do in order to become that self? Maybe it is letting some aspects of the former self go so that new things could be reborn to your new future potential self. And above all, have fun. I want to thank you for joining me today. Remember, myth, personal well-being, body, mind, and spiritual growth are a collective journey. I hope you took as much from this podcast as I received in presenting it to you. I am deeply grateful for your presence here, and as always, I leave you with a farewell and a greeting concurrently. May blessings find you on your journey to believe, achieve, and advance confidently in the direction of your dreams. Thank you for joining.